Hello everybody, it is me, the one and only Pacific Ocean Asia, coming to you, well, not so live on a late Saturday night. I don't know, man, I'm just feeling it tonight. I'm feeling the impetus to come out with more stuff, to pollute the internet with more of Pacific's grandiosity. Just kidding. Got something in my eye. Oh, it's my finger. So I wanted to talk about something because being the kind of guy that lives inside of my head, being the kind of a guy that just likes to get deep beneath the floorboards and under the rocks and down into the crevices to find out what's underneath there, I often analyze movements and religious beliefs and people's motives, and I analyze my own self. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is how a cold culture pushes us to make wrong decisions. This is not a victimization video. Well, I didn't get proper toilet training when I was growing up, so I have major dysfunction. That's not what this is. People take the time to study psychology, and I put as much faith in psychology as I put in Barack Obama. 0. And I'll tell you why. Psychology operates off a bunch of humanistic foolishness and Freudian concepts and Jungian teachings, and it's just so subjective. It's not built on a foundation of absolutes and truth. It's an industry that keeps people coming back and paying a shrink to never really get an answer. It's job security for those with a psychological degree. Most people that have psychological degrees think that they're the great analyzers of the rest of us people. Often those with psychological degrees, many that I know, are a mess up here themselves. We don't need to prove who they are. We all know who they are. I've mentioned them in past videos, people that I've known personally. But let me talk about my life. When I was a child, I was locked into my bedroom till 10 years of age. No, that doesn't mean I was locked in solitary confinement for 10 years. Means I got home from school, sat in my room, door locked. When I was real little, before I went to school, I was locked in my bedroom. My mother would have been, if Child Protective Services was something I even knew about. If anybody that knew me and knew what was going on knew about CPS, my parents would have been charged with child abuse. I distinctly remember a time, I cannot remember the age, but I was very little. I was in my room trying to hurt myself so that I would cry, so that I could get their attention. No, I wasn't seeking negative attention, not at all. I wanted people to feel sorry for me. I wanted people to care. When a young little child is doing that, something is either wrong with me or with the parents. I've analyzed myself for 48 years. I've been accused of a lot of things in my lifetime, mostly by a really messed up mother who adopted me. Chemical imbalances, corn allergies, you name it. And to be sure, I do have my problems. But ironically, as 48 years of my life have come and gone, one thing I've noticed that continues to amaze me is I look out there and go, if I got a problem, then what is this guy's issue? I don't care if it's businessmen, college grads, Ivy League people, attorneys. I look at people and they're a mess. They're rude. They're unkind. They drive like idiots. I'm going, oh. I could be like my mother and say, oh, they must have eaten corn again. Or how about the guy in San Francisco that went on a murder rampage and he said, well, I ate a Twinkie. There are food allergies. I kid you not, there are food allergies that can cause some very, very bombastic reactions. I mean, why should that surprise us? If malted barley and alcohol can change your behavior and take away your inhibitions. I mean, how many girls, when they get drunk, get laid? I mean, that's just a fact. How many men that are normally docile when they're sober and they drink and they're ready to punch everybody's lights out? So I believe food can do much the same thing. Some people have admitted to eating seafood and becoming quite belligerent. I don't doubt that. But I look back in my life. Nobody's perfect, and we're not talking about a standard of perfection. But in this fallen world where we have all inherited a sin nature, it is unfortunately the gift that keeps on giving. When a child is ripped from his mother at 4 months of age and adopted in a very harsh family background, a family background that was fraught with tension between the mother and father, that there seemed to be little and even no love exhibited most of my growing up years in that household. And then when I'd finally had enough of my mother and I became a Christian, and I already told you about all that story, and I was dating a girl in high school who had her own baggage and problems. But her parents seemed nice, and of course, they wasted no time in trying to teach me about spiritual things. And to their credit, I learned a tremendous amount of biblical theology from them. Though it took me years to sift through the damage that the girl's father had done to me, and the craziness that was within him, trying to make me his son, paddling me at 19 years old because I needed it. The weird, strange things that he did that way, controlling, manipulating me into marrying his daughter. And I remember when I ran away from home, not once did my father ever knock on the door and said, Pacific, can we talk? Not once did my mother do it. Weeks went by and my mother met me after track practice at the high school and cornered me, and I got in the car somewhat nervous. She goes, I want us to go to your pastor. And I sat there stiff and tense in the car, not wanting to be there. The pastor wasn't in. The meeting was not to happen. Good thing. But I look back on that moment and something stands out. That the first week I had ran off, not once was there any contrition on them like, oh my gosh, he's ran off. Now, and don't get me wrong, I'm not endorsing that every time a kid does something that the parents should all be a warm and loving and a warm, fuzzy teddy bear. But in the case of me leaving, if they had known why I left, if my mother had the ability to look within and see that she drove me out of the house, if they had provided a truly loving, not a material blessed, but a loving, warm, nurturing home, that even if I did go off the deep end, then in the back of my mind I go, man, why did I leave that? I want to go home. Pacific doesn't know what home is. I never have. The only home I'm going to know is in heaven one day. No, this isn't some depressing, whining video. This is just reality. for the true believer of God, this is not our home. The world is not our home. We're just passing through. When I went to marry my first wife, I was in high school and then graduated, and people very much against it. But instead of people reaching out in love and saying, Pacific, no. Yelled at, talked down to. When I went to prepare to go to Hong Kong to marry Beth, the church secretary, the then church secretary at a church I went to on South Hill, and her husband, and she was an uptight, not a warm persona at all. And unfortunately, even though she was a Christian woman, I thought, gosh, she's kind of a biatch. Her husband was nice. But a couple weeks before I was leaving, they took me to Huckleberry's, which was the Whole Foods or health food store with a restaurant in it. And I loved going there. It was a nice place to eat. They invited me to lunch. We went, and they proceeded to talk to me rudely, unkindly, in a scoldatory way, with other people right up against our seating area, looking, going, what is going on over here? You should not be going to Hong Kong to marry that girl. There's no reason you can't find a good woman in Washington, yelling and raising their voices and rude about it. Another guy at church that I didn't even know, we had been called on, the men of the church and some of the women, to help an elderly woman move. She didn't have a pickup truck or anything, so my truck was used as well as several others. And another guy, we were helping move stuff in the house, and he started nosing around in my business, and without even thinking, I said, oh yeah, I'm going to Hong Kong to marry a girl. Oh, really? And then he says, have you ever been married before? I said, oh yeah, I'm divorced. Was she a Christian? Yep. Oh man, I never should have answered that. Hey, you shouldn't be marrying. You can't get married. You can. I said, well, you know what, bud, I don't agree with you. This guy was a freak. Rude about it. Forceful about it. Not my friend. Never befriended me in the whole time I went there. Never asked if I had a job. Never asked how I like sport. Never. And then one Sunday I pulled up and my truck parked in the church parking lot. I didn't go in yet. It wasn't time. And I'm sitting in my truck listening to the radio, reading my Bible. He comes right up to my truck and starts in. I said, hey, you know what, dude? This is my truck. This is my space. And I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm done. But I said, Lo, let me ask you something. Did you ever care about me? Have you ever befriended me? Well, I do. I said, you don't care about me. You want to be a spiritual busybody and tell me what you think God wants me to do, and you haven't even earned the right to have that platform in my life. I didn't yell or scream. I went to the pastor and told him, hey, this is ridiculous. Once again, pastor didn't do a thing. It wasn't until I rented from a lady parishioner from that church that I told her about that story a year later, and she goes, oh, he was an addict. And, a lot of people that are addicts, they come to Jesus, and then, the intensity they use to chase alcoholism and drugs and whatever, they suddenly become almost obnoxious towards others and pushing their faith on them. And I said, well, you know what? That stuff is annoying. In American culture, we talk about a lot of kids doing crazy stuff. And I can look in most homes and I don't see warmth and love. I see parents promote materialism. I see parents promoting love of pets, love of stuff, love of SUVs, love of everything but their own children. Well, of course we love our children. Then your kid dyes their hair, pierces himself, and you got to start asking some questions. Why are they following that crowd out there? Now, we all are born with sin nature. Parents can do everything right, and we all know that. And parents can be the most loving, and their kids can still rebel. But how come so many kids do rebel? How come Pacific has made so many wrong decisions? Because I made choices and I have a sinful nature. But I can honestly say that because of the coldness within the family that adopted me and the lack of warmth, love, and nurturing, all I want to do is get far away from them. When the couple from the church embarrassed me as a 40-something-year-old man, adult man in a restaurant, I'm like, wow, you know. So Pacific, are you against somebody telling you they don't think you should be? Not at all. But as I get older, I'm learning there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. I don't expect people to come and hand me a bouquet of roses and say, now. But to demean and to yell and to put down and to scold and talk to me like a little child, I don't believe even Jesus Christ would do that. I don't even do that to my kids on the bus, ironically. Because I learned something. You have to respect and you got to care. And too much of our society is about telling other people what to do and jumping all over somebody when they're about to make a decision instead of saying, you know what? I hate to see you do this and wreck your life. I love you. Pacific has not had a warm place to go. And I believe many of us have made decisions that are really bad, even fatal to our walk with God and getting involved in relationships, because if we had loving homes, we might get caught up in something. But if we have loving families and loving people around us, we might go, you know what? They're all warning me about this, and they've always been good to me, and you know what? I think I'm going to listen to them. And unfortunately, the church is too busy being the spiritual police where, you know, you need to put your hands in the air or they're going to shoot. And it's not right. Many of us have made decisions because of a lack of a good thing to go back to fall back on. But when I see a church secretary and her husband acting belligerent and rude in a restaurant, I'm like, sheesh, well, I don't want to be around this. I'm going after that woman in Hong Kong. I mean, that's got to be better than this crap. But Pacific, what if God was using them? I don't think he was. I think people act in their flesh and they get out of bounds. But it's interesting because we all make mistakes. And I'm sure if you all look back in your life, many of you could say, and you can't blame it on your parents, you can't blame, you made the decision. But don't you think that a negative, uncool background can push us into making bad decisions? Absolutely. I'll tell you something else we all need to be guarded against. Going to Frozen Chosen Baptist Church, I'm no more to go to that. There's two ladies I work with that are a definition of ladies. One gave me and another coworker buddy of mine very nice book. And I was like, wow, the great controversy ended. A glimpse into eternity. I started looking, there's no author, the publisher's not listed. Well, Better Living Publications, and it just seems secretive. I started reading it and I started agreeing with it, and I showed it to the man of the house, and he says, who wrote this? I said, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, and I want to say something about the two ladies I work with. They're kind, they're sincere, and they're warm. They both have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I start digging around in this book, and I see Ellen G. White. And I'm like, uh-oh. And original text by Ellen G. White, and she wrote this, to my brother Michael, may God richly bless you, sincerely, in her name. Can I say that even me at 48 years old has to be on guard against leaven? What did Jesus say? Beware of the leaven in the yeast, the fat, Sadducees and Pharisees, the little leaven leaveneth the whole lump of dough. Dump of low. Okay, we're on a roll here. Anybody know what a dump of low is? Do any of you understand what I'm talking about? Do you know how false religions suck people in? By warmth, seeming care and love. What's really sad is some of the greatest containers for Orthodox truth, Baptist churches and non-denominational churches, can be the most loveless and most morgue-like. I talked to a guy at work today. We worked together in the 90s. He remembers me for my love of ships, because in the 90s, he remembers me talking about it. Straight up guy. He's a Christian. I actually have always felt comfortable around him. He's not gay. He's not weird. He's taller than me. But we were chatting today. Today's the end of the deal for this year. He's pulling his bus around and he opens the door and said, hey, we chatted. We talked about women and he says, what are you doing? I said, nothing. And I said, 2 weeks of nothing. I said, I don't have a girlfriend. I said, I stay with this couple and they're nice, but I feel like a third wheel in the holidays because it is their family, but they're nice to have me in. He said, yeah, I haven't been in a relationship either. He says, you know, it's funny. It seems when we get older, nobody wants us anymore. I said, but it's more than that. I said, women today are after money. And he says, you know, that's funny you say that. I've noticed something's changed with them. I said, something has totally changed with them. And I wrote down my phone number. I said, we got 2 weeks off. Give me a call. Let's do something. He says, you know what? I'd like that. And he says, if nothing more, just to talk. He said, it'd be nice to talk about guy issues. And I said, I'm all for that. Pacific admits and addresses that I want healthy male relationships. I've never had that. I had 2 what I considered best friends in Duluth, and they were both messed up beyond words. And I literally hung on them for 14 years. And I had to learn that, you know, you have to really learn to live alone and say, man, if this is what people are going to do to me, I don't need them. The woman who gave me this book gave my other coworker friend a copy, and I said, well, that's nice. And there's a lot of good truth in here, talking about church history and stuff like this. But we have to always be on guard, especially in these last days of a very cold, loveless society that a lot of error presents itself as a seductress. And it's tough. And the Bible says, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And yet the Baptist church I've been to for over a year now, I don't see people free. I see them bound up in legalism, harshness, and I don't want to be around that. I honestly just don't think I'm going to find any church that I really feel that's my home. And it is true. We often, I apologize, it's late. We often run into stuff and make bad decisions because of a big lack of our life for intimate, warm, family-like fellowship with other believers. For those of us that didn't have healthy, solid, good family backgrounds, we go out of the gate with a box missing a lot of necessary tools. It's not an opportunity for us to be victim. It's an opportunity for us to face and say, you know, I lack something. And that is the problem of most Americans today. They're not able to look inside and say, I really lack something. I'm missing tools. I've been deeply affected by my background. They don't say that. They'll play victim. They'll do all that. But they'll never come to terms with, you know, I'm not able to be very productive to my ex because I'm a mess myself. They won't do that. So many of us make decisions. And then the other thing is a lot of Christians say things. I remember the friend I had in Minnesota that told me if I married Beth, he would have nothing to do with me, break fellowship, blah, blah, blah. You know, you marry her, God could cripple her, then what? What really bothers me is when Christians use this idea that God's standing there with a sledgehammer waiting for you to screw up so he can just, ring your bell as hard as he can. And I'm going, does he always do that? No. The church needs to be a place not to endorse or condone sin, but the church needs to be a place that when somebody does wander off, that when they get out there in that dark, evil, callous, cruel world, devoid of true saving faith, that they say, man, you know what? I missed the warmth of the church and my loving pastor and my loving congregation. I felt safe. I felt close to Jesus. I'm telling you, people underestimate what a big deterrent that is for sinning. It just makes us go, why would I want to sin? I'd rather be connected with good people in Christ. Something to think about, viewers. This isn't a long video, but it's a point made. Look back in your own life, men and women. Look at the decisions you made and see where you went wrong and go, wow, I made this because I didn't have the support of the back. I'm not talking about people who condone your decisions. I'm talking about where you can look back and you made a bad decision. It wasn't God's will. And look back at what led up to that. Did you have people that actually cared warmly and said, man, I wish you wouldn't do that. I love you and I hate to see you get into that. It'll cause you so much heartache. Did you ever have people tell you that? Or did you get scolded and lambasted and have the scriptural dump truck backed up? Ouch. We're not supposed to use the scripture as a weapon out of our own carnality. We're supposed to use the sword of the Spirit as God directs. But the biggest reason we should encourage people not to make decisions is for the love of God and because God cares about us, and that if we step outside of his will, we cause ourselves a lot of hurt. And we need to be warm to our brothers and sisters. We must. Anyways, I think it's time to retire. So just some thoughts from the desk of Pacific. This is me signing off. Bye-bye.